Well, hopefully you pick up one of these guys here. This is questions just to go along with the sermon. They're on that table there. They're in the lobby. They're also put on Facebook on our Facebook page with the video that is live streamed. Well, we are moving into week 4 of our series. Yes, audacious living, which we've defined audacious with, I guess, with the definition of audacious, right? Fearlessness and daring and bold and original, right? That this audacious way we're seeing these people act and live out what God has put before them. And also we've subtitled this Lessons in Kindness. And this Hebrew word that is this Hebrew word chesed, which is really love, but generosity and kindness, it really is this great big word, is we're just trying to grasp what God is saying to us and how can we demonstrate kindness and generosity to others. And we've started with this quote, and I love this quote, and it's really where I like us to live is through this scholar that says the scroll of Ruth is a book about kindness and audacity, about kindness that propels people to act audaciously for the sake of others. And I love that. So it's not just kindness to be nice or generous, but it's a form of action and love, right? It's something I have to do on someone else's behalf. And so not just kindness that benefits me or love that benefits me, but I'm doing something for someone else. And it's audacious in the sense that it might require me to be bold or fearless or daring on behalf of someone else. And so I want us to hear that, and I hope we're hearing that as we're going through this, as we see Ruth and Naomi and Boaz, and today they develop this, or Naomi develops this very audacious plan, and then next week we see Boaz be pretty audacious himself, and so really challenging us to live life on the edge, so to speak, right? And I'm going to end with a quote that I think you know very well, but that really just talks about the level of risk and the level of faith are pretty connected, aren't they? The risk I'm willing to take for Jesus' sake is really connected to the depth of my faith in Him. And so just want to wrestle through that as we go through this text, as we take a look at Ruth and Naomi and everything that they're doing, and really ask ourselves, am I willing to take a risk for someone else? Not for myself, but to benefit someone else. And so let's dive in to this text this morning. A few things I want to just, I guess, have us looking towards or make sure we know about as we go through this is the idea of dependency. Ruth, Naomi, and Boaz, our three main characters, are essentially in this circle of dependency, right? They are dependent on one another. Ruth on Naomi, Naomi on Ruth, Boaz on Naomi, Naomi and Ruth both on Boaz, right? They're all interconnected. And so we've kind of seen that, but we really start to see it this week. And so we don't want to miss that, the significance of their connectedness to one another and their need for one another for this very daring plan to take place. We also want to understand the threshing floor. And so the best I can understand this and explain this is this would have been up on a hill because in the late afternoon, the winds would be blowing through to allow them to winnow, as we're going to learn today, the grain. And so they would stand in this open space, throwing it in the air where the grain would fall and the chaff would just be taken away by the wind. Very dirty job, very labor intensive. Okay, so a lot of hard work after I've harvested that I now have to thresh and get the grain separated from the chaff. Okay, so very dirty. So we'll talk about that as we get to that. And then finally, we've talked about this idea that redemption and redeeming is more in Ruth than any other book in the Bible. Well, the word here is goel. This is the Hebrew word, and it means redeemer. And we're going to see this used a bunch in the text today. So what is it? Well, first of all, it's the idea of protecting vulnerable relatives. Okay? And that if I'm going to be a goel, if I'm going to goel for someone, I'm protecting a relative who needs help, essentially. The thing we also want to know is it does not mean marriage. Okay? This word, to redeem, doesn't mean marriage, yet Ruth kind of hints at it a bit, and Boaz totally takes it all. that way, okay, as we take a look at this text. So it doesn't mean that. And so we want to see that. So when we hear that today, it doesn't mean, hey, I'm asking for a husband. It says I'm looking for protection, but maybe Boaz is jumping in a different way as well. Okay? And so chapter 3, first 5 verses. If you're not there, go ahead and turn there. A couple of points to look for that we're going to see in this text. Not surprised? They're still alone. Okay, they started chapter 2 alone. They ended chapter 2 alone. They had food, but it was a temporary solution. Again, they're starting chapter 3 alone. Secondly, rest. First sentence, you're going to see this word rest. Naomi says to Ruth, she wants to provide her rest. Okay, she doesn't want to give her a chance to sleep. What the implication here is marriage. Now, and the reason that is, and I know 21st century women don't like to hear this, but the idea in that culture is that a woman couldn't rest until she had a husband. Okay, so that's the idea. And so what Naomi is proposing to Ruth is marriage. She wants to take care of her. So this young woman has attached herself like glue to Naomi, sacrificed everything to come with her, and Naomi essentially feels obligated to provide her with a husband. Okay, and so that's the strategy. That's the plan they're working towards. And we see Naomi take initiative, and boy, when Naomi takes initiative, she concocts a very bold plan, which we're going to see here in a minute. And then finally, what could go wrong? Everything. Absolutely everything, okay? And we want to see that this morning. We want to hear that this morning. This is a big risk. What Naomi is asking Ruth to do, what Ruth agrees wholeheartedly to do, and then they're bringing Boaz into their little scheme as well. And so everyone here has a lot to risk. Their reputation to risk, their own life possibly to risk, being abused is a risk, right? Just a really crazy situation. So let's take a look at starting in verse 3. But what we can say about the ladies of this study is they are audacious. They are willing to take risks. They're willing to be fearless. They're willing to be daring to make something happen. Because what we know so far is nothing's happened. They're still alone. Okay, we're going to find out they have 2 relatives and no one's done anything. People are talking about them, but no one's done anything. And so these women are taking action to solve their problem. So here's what Naomi, her mother-in-law, says to Ruth. My daughter, should I not seek rest for you? Marriage. Should I not seek a spouse for you? Okay, is what she's saying. That it may be well. Right? It will be well if you could be married again, is what she's saying. And then she reminds her, is not Boaz our relative, which Naomi seems to have known all along, conveniently didn't tell her at the beginning last week, told her at the end, of course he's our relative. Okay, so is he not our relative with whose young women you were? So she spent probably 2 months, Ruth, with Boaz harvesting. Okay? See, he is winnowing barley tonight at the threshing floor. So Naomi somehow knows that Boaz is going to be winnowing his barley on the threshing floor, which is going to be, again, up on a hill, so the late afternoon winds will help them out in doing this task. Okay? So verse 3. Go wash yourself. Now, we don't think much about that, right? Because we most of us, I'm guessing, wash up daily. This is the culture where they washed often. Okay, the ancient culture didn't stand under their shower, right? They didn't draw a nice warm bath, right? And people who were in the lower class, where they would have been, have nothing, probably wouldn't have been washing often. So this is a significant command to go clean up and anoint yourself. Another big ask, because they most likely would have been anointing with olive oil, which was a pretty expensive commodity. So the fact that they would have used it for anointing, because I would have washed and anointed to make myself look clean, okay, to make myself look radiant. And also maybe it would have been scented to give myself a better smell as well. Okay, so go clean and anoint and put on your cloak. Now, some scholars would say that maybe Ruth was still wearing her widow garments, maybe not. And what is the cloak she's putting on? We don't know. Again, some would say maybe it's more like a wedding attire, maybe it's just her nicest cloak, I don't know. But she says, go put it on. They obviously would have known what they're talking about. We don't exactly know the right cloak here. And go down to the threshing floor. Okay, so for the ancient reader hearing this, they're like, no. women don't go to the threshing floor. It is not a place for women, okay? And so the ancient readers like, bad plan right from the start, Naomi. Getting washed, good idea. Anointing, good idea. Good cloak, good idea. But going to the threshing floor, which we're going to find out at night, bad idea, okay? All kinds of stuff can happen to this woman at the threshing floor. But this is Naomi's plan. But do not make yourself known to the man until he's finished eating and drinking. Apparently, you don't address a man until he's got a full belly and a happy heart. Okay? Apparently, that's what she's going for here. We'll see more of that in a minute. But she's saying, go down but hide. Because if any man sees you down there, just like in the field where they might have taken advantage of you, at the threshing floor where there's really not going to be any other women around, you are truly going to be taken advantage of. So we understand the risk that's going on here. Taking a big risk because Naomi has zero idea of what's going to happen to Ruth when she gets to the threshing floor. But when he lies down, and that's not enough. Okay, if that's not enough, when he lies down, observe the place where he lies down. Because the owner of the field wouldn't have lied down with the workers. Okay, so he'd have been in a separate spot by himself. And by the way, they have to sleep there so thieves don't come and steal the grain. Okay, so they work all day, dusty, working like crazy all day, sleep there, get back up, do it again. Okay, that's the idea. And so he's going to sleep by his grain. And then she says, and go and uncover his feet and lie down. Man, there's a lot of speculation through other Old Testament scriptures of what this means, but in most cases, the meaning in some way, some would say, well, maybe she just had to, open him up a little bit so he gets cold and he wakes up. But the idea of uncovering his feet or uncovering a man's lower half is sexual. Okay, it has a sexual connotation. And our narrator continues to say that all the way through some stuff like that, but never tells us what happens. Though we kind of can imply, maybe not. But that's the idea, is that she's supposed to go and uncover his feet and lie down. And then look what Naomi says. Let him tell you what to do. Would any of you send your daughters off on a thing like this? Let the man tell you what he wants from you completely, and then do it. No, right? So Naomi says, I want you to go to this place you shouldn't go, where a single woman definitely shouldn't be, at night. Be secret, don't let anybody see you. Go to this guy, Boaz, who's our relative, uncover his feet and lay next to him. And then do whatever he tells you to do. It's outrageous. And an ancient reader would be sitting there like, this is not going to end well. And they might even, if it were a play, they'd walk away. I didn't want to know what's going to happen. Because this can't go well. And of course, what does Ruth say? Because she's 100% wholly committed to Naomi? You got it. I'm all in. What could go wrong? Everything could go wrong. And so she heads off. And we continue on with our story. Definitely a bunch of sexual overtones. Ruth takes initiative. Wait a minute. Didn't Naomi tell her not to? Didn't Naomi tell her to wait on Boaz? Well, our gal Ruth, she didn't like to wait on anybody. Ruth tells Boaz who he is. She doesn't tell him what to do. She tells him who he is. Very significant. Boaz responds enthusiastically. Now, most scholars would say Boaz could just say, okay, let's get you out of here tomorrow morning. But Boaz goes crazy, essentially, with joy and glee. Now, a lot of reasons why, maybe a couple reasons why, but the idea here is if Boaz is older, because he continually calls her my daughter, and she's younger, an older guy that is being essentially proposed to by a younger woman, he seems a bit excited about this. Okay? So we'll see that. And then finally, we see these words. Wings, of which Boaz, if you recall last week, prayed that God's wings would cover her and be her refuge. And what do you see what Naomi says back, Ruth says back to him about said wings? Goel, she's going to tell him who he is. And then Chesed, he calls her out for that. So let's take a look. So she goes to the threshing floor, and she did just as her mother-in-law had commanded. So she's hiding initially, okay, because she doesn't want to be seen. The men might still be working. The men are eating and drinking, but she's trying to stay away so no one sees her. And when Boaz had eaten and drunk, and his heart was merry. Okay, so the thing the author is describing us is Boaz, whatever he's eaten, but he's probably had some wine too. Okay, and so he's full and he's happy. Okay? He went to lie down at the end of his heap of grain. So he goes by himself, he lies down alone. Then she came softly, quietly, she approaches him. She uncovers his feet, just as Naomi had said, and she lays down. Okay. At midnight, interesting that the narrator says midnight is the hour. Intriguing. Middle of the night. The man was startled. We don't know why he's startled. We don't know if he's like, oh, my feet are cold, or she's tickling his foot. I don't know. But he's startled. And he turns over. And I love the narrator uses the word, behold, look, can you believe it? Yes, we can. Can you believe that there's a woman laying at his feet? But it's still dark out, so he can't see who, and so he says, who are you? And she says, I am Ruth, your servant. And if she'd followed the instructions of Naomi, she'd have stopped there. I am Ruth, your servant, and waited for Boaz to do or say whatever he wanted to do, because that's exactly what Naomi had told her. Boaz will know what to do. We don't know what that means, okay? As the reader here in the 21st century, we don't know what she thought. But our gal Ruth, no way. She spells it out exactly, and she uses his own word back on him. Spread your wings over your servant. And if you recall, he prayed that God would spread his wings over her. She's essentially saying, you're going to be the fulfillment of that. You're going to be the fulfiller of the thing you prayed and asked God that I would take refuge under his wings. Guess what, Boaz? I'm asking you to do that. And by the way, for you are a Goel. You are a redeemer. This is who you are. She's not telling him what to do other than spread your wings over me. And now you are a redeemer. You are this person. Now, Boaz still could do anything he wants here. He could take advantage of her. He could kick her out. He could shout, and all the men would come around and say, what's a woman doing on the threshing floor? All kinds of stuff could happen here. The plan could still just blow up, and everybody could be a mess. But he doesn't. He's excited. This guy is excited. He says, may you be blessed by Yahweh, my daughter. Right? Still giving us this age gap that must exist. You have made this last kindness, this last hesed. Okay, so the first hesed is her loving Naomi the way she did. And now he's going to explain essentially the last hesed. You've made the last hesed greater than the first. Well, how's that possible? In that you have not gone after young men, whether rich or poor. You see, Boaz has received this as maybe a little bit more than just being a redeemer. Maybe a little bit more than just being a protector, because he's saying you could have chased after younger men, poor or rich, for marriage. But what you've done is you've chosen me. And that kind of love, that kind of kindness, that kind of generosity, he's saying, whoa, it's comparable to what you did with Naomi. So you can understand how Boaz is seeing this. He's moved, he's impacted. He says, and now, my daughter, you don't need to fear. This is unbelievable. This is a great statement of encouragement to her, because I got to believe she's laying there with fear. Right? I've got to believe she's come to the threshing floor like I have no idea what's going to happen. I will do for you all that you ask. And he gives a little extra information. He says, for all my fellow townsmen know that you are a worthy woman. What does this tell us again? There's a lot of scuttlebutt. Everybody knows Ruth. Everybody knows Naomi. Everybody seems to know what's going on. They've been talking about it, and they've been saying really good things about Ruth. She is a worthy woman versus a not worthy woman, fill in the blank, whatever that might be. And he's saying, everybody knows you are, so I think this is going to work out really good for me and you, because your reputation is already good. Okay, and so he's letting her know you don't need to fear, because I think we can make this happen because everybody in the town thinks you're a pretty good gal. Okay, things are going well. He says, and now it is true that I am a Goel, that I am a redeemer. But guess what? There's another one that's a bit more connected to your father-in-law Elimelech than me. Someone who's a little bit closer. Which again, as we're reading this, we're like, why didn't these guys, if they knew, do anything? But they haven't. And we can speculate all kinds of reasons why, but they haven't. But we know that these women had to take action to make something happen because these guys aren't doing anything. Now, I know some of you, a lot of you women are saying, they're like, what's changed? Right? To get something done, we gotta get them to do it. But it seems to be what our female prone author, whether it's a man or a woman, is letting us know that this doesn't happen unless these two females do something, because these two men up to this point have done zero other than provide food. One of them has. So he says, remain tonight. And in the morning, if he will redeem you, good, let him do it. But if he is not willing to redeem you, then as the Lord lives, I will. But he's saying, stick around. He's putting his life on the line now too, and his reputation on the line. Because you would think he would say, okay, got it in the morning, let's get you out of here. Let's get you out of here as quick as we can, and maybe I'll walk you halfway, let's sneak you around and get you out, but this is not a place for you. But he says, why don't you wait and lie down until morning. And then we get to our next part. And so this guy is taking a risk too. Okay, and so now we've got all three of them at this point in our story. If this is where the play kind of took a break for intermission, we're wondering, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? If the other guys see her in the morning, this is not good for her, and it's probably not good for Boaz, and it's not going to be good for Naomi once the story gets out. And so we keep going on. But I love this quote first from Phyllis Tribble. This is so good. Ruth overturns all social niceties. For here's a woman proposing to a man, a younger person proposing to an older person, a field worker proposing to a field owner, and an alien proposing to a native. Ruth has put herself completely out there. This is culturally not what she should be doing. But yet she just flops it all on its head and says, I'm going for it. We need a solution to the problem. My mother-in-law has sent me here. She believes in me. She believes in the situation. I'm going for it. And she goes for it. So we get to our last few verses where everybody's reputation is on the line until we get through to the end of it, because we don't know what's going to happen. Everybody's reputation there. This idea Naomi asks is, how did you fare? The slang would be, well, are you still single? Did something happen? Right, that's the idea of what Naomi is asking her. Empty. Our narrator throws this word back at us in a much better way. It's going to be interesting when we see this, right? Because Naomi said, I left Bethlehem full and I came back empty and bitter. And then finally, we see last words. We see Ruth's last words of this story, and we see Naomi's last words. So let's take a look. So she sticks around, and she lays at his feet until the morning. But she arose before one could recognize another. So a pre-dawn idea here, right? In that time of the morning where, you're just kind of waking up and you can't really see. So they get up. And he said, let it not be known that a woman came to the threshing floor. In other words, Ruth, don't tell anybody. Don't let this out that you were here. I'm not going to say anything. You don't say anything. No woman should be here. And then he says, bring your garment here. This guy, he's a good guy, isn't he? We have said this all along. He's a good guy. He keeps proving it to us because he wants to send, I believe, what's happening here is, and we're going to see this, he wants to send a message to Naomi. So bring the garment that you are wearing and hold it out. So she brings the garment. She holds it out. He measures out 6 measures of barley, and he puts it on her, and then she goes to the city. So she's sneaking out, trying not to be seen, carrying food. Okay? Verse 16. And when she came to her mother-in-law was like, well, are you married? Did you get abused? What happened? Are you single? What happened, my daughter? And then she told her all that the man had done for her. Appears that maybe Ruth didn't say what she had done. A lot of thought as to why that might be. A lot of thought being that maybe, and we're going to see this in their last words, that maybe Ruth really doesn't need to draw the attention to herself. Maybe that's another form of hesed, right? Is putting it all on Boaz, everything that he had done, everything that he says he's going to do, that Ruth doesn't need that. Very intriguing. We don't know that. But just as we look at that, and she says, here's what he did. Here's everything that Boaz did. Saying, this is what Boaz said, these 6 measures of barley he gave to me, for he said to me, You must not go back empty-handed to your mother-in-law. So Ruth's last words essentially are saying, and again, right, we know the beginning of the story. Ruth is empty, essentially getting this hope, this optimism, looking forward that maybe the story is going to end on a good note, and maybe she's not going to be empty-handed going forward. And maybe this is Boaz sending a message to Naomi, I got this. And when I've got her, I've got you too. Okay? This idea, the way the narrator just uses these words, and then Naomi says, her last words, wait, my daughter, until you learn how the matter turns out. For the man will not rest, but will settle the matter today. So much optimism. Ruth comes back and says, here's what he says he's going to do. This morning, he says he's going to go find the other guy, take care of it. And Naomi says to her, just wait. Now our job is just to wait and see what he does. And so we get the end of the interaction of these women, because the next story becomes the story of what Boaz does, which is outrageous too, of how he goes about it. But we get the end of the women's part of what they're speaking, and it's hopeful. This risk they took appears that it's going to be rewarded, where these women laid out their lives on the line, continually lay out their lives on the line, not having any idea what would occur. It appears that there's favor being shown to them. Oh my gosh, that's an amazing story, isn't it? And I think about this, right? I'm so challenged by these words and so challenged by these three characters who are willing to risk it all for someone else, right? Each of them are willing to take a risk for someone else. Each of them is willing to be audacious on behalf of someone else, to get problems resolved, to solve, to bring solution to issues. And then I think, and what I really thought about was this quote by Kierkegaard that you all know, right? For without risk, there's no faith, and the greater the risk, the greater the faith. And I'm wondering how in our culture today, we want to live comfortable lives for Jesus, instead of being folks who are willing to live on the edge for Jesus, but for others. Right? Folks who are willing to take a risk with my reputation, with my own life, so that someone else will benefit. Man, I'm challenged by that, because I think really as God has called me to follow Him, right? And it is what He's done for me. Am I willing to put myself out there for Him, for someone else, right? I think sometimes we're saying, well, I'll put myself out there when it benefits me, but am I willing to put myself out there when I risk my own reputation or life for someone else? And as I think about my own walk, the greater the risk I take in life just forces me to trust Jesus more. Because when I don't risk anything and when I just try to take care of myself, I don't need Jesus, honestly, because I can do it myself. But the greater risk I take, the greater I put myself on the edge, requires me to have greater faith to follow Him. And if these people are any example, they're outrageous people. They're audacious in every way imaginable, taking risks all along the way, risking it all for one another as they are dependent on each other for success. And we still don't know whether it's going to work, because Ruth and Naomi are still alone, right? All the way through. We don't know what's going to happen when Boaz goes to the other guy that can redeem. We don't know how that's going to go, right? Are they going to joust, or are they going to, have it out? What's going to happen? All we know is it seems hopeful. In the words of Ruth and the words of Naomi, it seems like it's going to happen. Was all their risk worth it? And now it falls on Boaz to concoct a plan, so to speak, so that he's the winner to the one that can be the redeemer for Ruth and Naomi. Man, I hope you're challenged by this. I hope you are willing, along with our partners here locally and our partners around the world who are risking it all, essentially, I hope that we are willing to either join them side by side or be called by God to step out in our own faith and risk for other people. And so as Bill and Lucas are going to come and lead in this last song, really seek God in that, right? Seek God in what are you asking of me? Right? I know maybe you're asking me to do this for me, But is there some way you want me to risk something for someone else? Is there some way you want me to put myself out there for someone else? See what God says. Let's pray as these guys prepare to lead us. Father, thank you for this story. For these three people. Man, I can't wait to meet them. Wow. They're inspiring. They challenge. It almost seems normal and natural to them that they would do this for each other. That they would be there for one another. They'd risk it all for each other. God, may we be known as those types of people. I really think about the body of Christ today, and I'm not sure we're known by our love for others and our willingness to take risk to save and feed and clothe and house others. We seem to want to take risks to protect our domain, to protect you, who I don't think needs protection. But Lord, may we be risk takers for other people, for those on the margins, for those who are struggling, for those of our relatives even who are struggling or vulnerable, who need help, for the stranger we don't even know, who needs a leg up. Whatever it might be, Lord, challenge us to learn from this story and to demonstrate our faith in you by the risk we're willing to take for others. In Jesus' name.